All right, so I just wanted to close with these final few words. Um, you know, it's been almost 80 years, let's just say, since the end of World War II. And some of the tactics and reasons that the United States lost this war was they weren't willing to push past the threshold of what was necessary to win the war. Um, a great book, I believe it's American Tactics of War, basically talks about how basically from the early days of the United States up until I guess like I guess up until the United States up until I guess like the Indian Wars and Civil War and like the later Plains Wars with the Indians and up until about World War II, we stopped fighting wars of annihilation. And so basically, we didn't really seek to destroy armies in the same way that we had probably done in World War One and World War Two, and even in the Spanish American Wars and previous wars, even on the American homeland in the Civil War. And so these tactics really gave way to allowing groups like the Taliban to reconstitute themselves in later iterations. And so the rules of war really changed the way that we fight. And also, the multinationalism of NATO didn't really allow for uh, direct command of an army the way that it had been. And so you have to put this kind of on the American government because, you know, figures can be very misleading and you can always smudge the numbers and skew them in such a way that it appears that you're winning, but you're actually not. And so, uh, and it's also the case that in hindsight that we taught to the Afghan army that it was never to destroy the enemy in a war of annihilation. It was always to use material superiority and technological uh, supremacy over the enemy to overwhelm them and have them surrender. And that really hasn't worked in the wars since then. Maybe in some of the smaller proxy wars that may have been effective um, via the CIA and things like that. But you look at Korea, you look at uh, Vietnam. Those conflicts didn't really have the same outcome as the previous war. Now, obviously, the war wars were a little bit of a different story. That was a multinational effort and things like that, and also the Korean War as well. But um, we seek to stop annihilating the enemy, and so we see in the Afghan papers that this was a big cause of a lot of issues in not just Afghanistan but Iraq as well. And it was the U.S. Army's goal was, sort of a superiority uh, complex, and we see that in the way that the uh, U.S. government operates in kind. And it's really just hard to see some of these forever wars go on for so long that generations of people uh, are scarred by them. Uh, I think for the veterans who have fought them and died, and those who have come back from these wars, they'll never be the same again. And this week, I was kind of reminded of that. You know, one of the casualties during the First World War was, I believe, a boy that was 15 or 17 years old, and it kind of shakes you to your core that he fought and died during the Battle of the Somme, and that was a battle that lasted an entire year, where ground was taken and it was lost and it was retaken and lost and retaken ultimately until the end of the war. And you know these ideas of nationalism and statehood and what does it mean be a citizen, it kind of gets melted away in, really what the people die for, not just in the world wars on the battlefields of France and Europe, but really what does this mean for the people who fought in Afghanistan? To see the people that they fought for so long in places that they've taken from Helmand province to Kandahar and ultimately uh, Kabul. What did it all really mean to fight and die for a cause that many of these people didn't really believe in and really had no purpose in fighting? I don't know. You know, uh, we lost over 2,400 soldiers in Afghanistan. Countless more came back home scarred and wounded. And how many of them have we lost since this war started? I don't think we would have an estimation of that, but it's countless in the thousands. The same as the Vietnam War. We lost thousands and thousands of young American boys and men and money and treasure to fight a war that was ultimately preordained for us to lose. And so I don't know. It's uh it's one of those things that we deeply have to reflect upon going forward. You know, what will um, what will this September 11th, 2020 look like? I don't know. I don't think we can really celebrate it the ways that we have in the past, but I don't really think that it's really something that I don't think it's really something that we can look forward to anymore. It's a war that technically, morally, economically we lost. Um, you might look at it the other way, but it's a war we essentially lost, like we lost in Iraq. Winning battles don't make the war, but a whole lot of battles make the men. And so, yeah, it really is something that to be said about war. I don't think that, I've never served, but just seeing the countless numbers of individuals who have served and who will serve in future wars, it's just, kind of sad. Afghanistan is as old as, you know, I was when we should have probably ended this war, but it raged on for another 10 years. And, you have to think about the Afghans who did die and fight for this war. And, you know, really what was it all for? Blood and treasure, you know, prestige. And all the while, our enemies grew stronger. You saw the U.S. be distracted by another war, which we thought was more imperative, the war in Iraq. But the quote unquote noble war was always Afghanistan. And what is it now? I don't know. Only history will be able to tell. If it's not a defeat, it sure as hell feels like one. And I guess that's it for this series of videos I'm going to do on Afghanistan. It's probably going to continue to be in the news. I don't predict. I predict the news actually will probably tell the truth now, more than ever about Afghanistan. But at this point, what does it really matter? Didn't get that gold watch. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and don't forget it's Brian with a Y. Over and out.